This is a presentation of the Sports Source Digital Network, presented by Hearthside Bank.
Welcome into the Sports Source Digital Network. I'm John Pennington. That is Bob Hodge. That is Will West. I want to talk about an interesting nugget coming out of Virginia Tech recently. I found it at A2Z Sports. They went and found a comment off the Tech Sideline podcast coming out of Blacksburg. Offensive coordinator for Virginia Tech, Philip Montgomery. Now, he runs the veer and shoot. He's got a veer and shoot system. A lot more of those people running it, which I think is possibly an issue for Tennessee. Mm-hmm. You had this system that only a few teams used, and now it worked, so many other teams are starting to use it. That helps people adjust to it. They're practicing more for it, etc. Anyway, Philip Montgomery has a background with Baylor and their system, and he came out and talked about some changes that are going on there that might explain why we haven't seen Tennessee run as much tempo the last couple of years. Something that I don't know if anybody in the SEC media or in Tennessee media or any of the former Vols that haven't been saying the same thing. Where's the tempo? Well, I'm going to read you a little quote here. This is what Philip Montgomery had to say. When we were at Baylor, it was, call as many plays as you can. Call it like your hair is on fire. Our goal at that time was to try to get 100 plays in a game. If you hit 100 more times than not, you were going to win. I think defenses have adjusted to that. If you're going to play fast all the time, they have systems installed now to kind of stay with you in that. I think what does cause them problems is when you're able to change that tempo throughout the game. Hey, we're normal. We're speeding up. We're slowing down. We may huddle. We may change the cadence. We may have a look with me type of deal or look at me type of deal. To be able to have all those different variables within your offense, to be able to use that tempo is important. And there may be one game where you use a ton of it. The next game, you may use tempo only 2 times. I think the flow of the game and the game plan of that game going into it dictates the use of tempo. I'll tie that to something Clark Lee said from Vanderbilt about Tennessee last year when he said, I think they've done things this season where it seems as though they're not just trying to line it up and snap it as many times as they can. They're slowing down a little bit. They're a little more methodical. They're using tempo to change pace and get you on your heels. Okay? Take that comment from Clark Lee, take what we all saw the last couple of years, and then marry it to what Philip Montgomery is there saying about Virginia Tech and how he has had to change that veer and shoot offense. And I ask you, that does sound like, okay, this was a strategy. There were people that thought, well, they had to do that because of the receivers. They had to do that because of Nico.
Even Josh Heupel said that he had to do that because of his offensive line 2 years ago.
There you go. Are we now seeing that, no, it's kind of offense does this, defense catches up, this is how the offense comes back. My question is, do you feel better? We all kind of agree that there's some truth to this?
Yeah,
I'm not seeing it
I'm
yet.
not exactly sure.
Yeah, I think he's full of crap, if I'm just being honest with you.
Okay. This goes off the rail immediately. Why is he full of crap?
What are you changing besides personnel stuff? The only thing that I've seen that happens is you're doing the 3 safety shell.
Well, that's not but why, why is he lying?
Stunting. I think it's what he prefers, and he thinks people are going to adjust to it, and maybe his players can't handle it. Chip Kelly adjusted in the NFL because his players couldn't handle it. And it protected his defense a little bit to be able to vary tempo. Yeah. And that's what Kelly did. I don't think, because the only thing you're changing there, the key is I keep you vanilla. So what are they doing? And again, I've been in the room when Nick Saban and Kirby Smart have said, Tennessee's system's so hard because I have to stay vanilla the entire time.
And so it did give Alabama trouble. It did not give Georgia any trouble whatsoever.
And what Kirby just seems to do is do some stunting up front, stop the run game.
Well, everybody started going to that 3-3-5 kind of a look.
And doing a shell where everybody's 10 yards off the line of scrimmage. But I don't know that it's personnel groupings, though, that they're catching up with.
They're also not making as many. Talking to people over there, one of the things you hear is you no longer are forcing people to make choices like they used to. It's not, okay, we're going to get out of here. And it leaves now a lot of defenses are saying, all right, you want to run the ball? Have at it. We're just not giving you the deep ball.
Yeah.
So if you think you can run it on us, 10 plays to go down the field, okay. Whereas those first couple of years, it was, okay, let's get in the box. And they go over your top. Okay, let's get back. Now they're running on you. And people seem to freak out over it. Now it appears that it's more, we're just going to sit back here. Good luck. Let's see you get over us. And with Tennessee and their penalties and trying to run 10 plays down the field, they're not as effective.
Passes?
Yeah, and dropping passes or having inaccurate throws.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is crap, though, right off the bat. I think there's a reason he's doing this. I don't think he would sit there and go, yeah, this could catch up someday, so I'm going to do this, especially when you got Tennessee doing it as well. So this would say that Tennessee's not doing it because they need to change tempo and people have adjusted.
I don't think what he said is crap.
Yeah.
But I just wonder if in Tennessee's case, if that's not really the full reason that we've seen what we've seen. Because I think what he's saying probably has some truth to it, because we have seen forever, go back to the 1980s, defenses always catch up.
Always catch up.
They always catch up.
Yep.
The newest, wildest thing, for 3 or 4 years, it runs crazy. And then the next thing you know, okay, it's not running crazy anymore. So I think there's truth to what he's saying. I don't think it's crap. But I just wonder, in Tennessee's case, is it we're changing our tempo to try to cause the defense problems, or does our offense have problems, and that's the reason we go? That's the question
That
in
could
my
be it
mind.
too. No, I agree. I guess we're focusing too much. I get where I was going with this. If we think there is some truth here, does that make you feel good or bad? Does it make you feel,
Well, and
okay,
that's what I
Heupel
was-
is adjusting, or do you say, oh crap, we were basing everything on this offense, and now it's
It
not going to
makes
be
me
the
feel
offense?
worse.
Yeah.
And that's the reason, is because you brought in a guy to do
run
something
this system.
and do it well, and he did it well for
Yes.
especially for 1 year. He did it greatly, and so when things get more conventional, is he going to be the same kind of coach? Since I came here, I brought the wishbone with me, I brought the run and shoot with me. Okay, now I brought the veer and shoot with me. A lot of these guys don't have a whole lot else in their quiver.
And
The other
that
guy-
It makes me
is
feel,
where
it
I-
makes me
yes.
feel worse.
Okay, go ahead.
I agree with Bob. That is the issue with this, because I don't think your tempo one way or the other matters. I think it's what you're calling it tempo. That's the thing that they're catching up to. What we're seeing is they're running 3 safety shell. They're running that off-balance look up front. They're going with the 3 stack or whatever they want to do there to make sure you give off-balance looks to your front, and then we're going to keep it all in front of us. So your choices are give them death by 1,000 cuts and dink and dunk your way all the way up the field and run the football, and you spread them out horizontally.
And I think most teams have decided, you beat us with 1,000 paper cuts.
Yes.
We're not giving you the bomb anymore.
So that's the thing that concerns me, because I don't think tempo dictates. They haven't come up with a personnel grouping that changes that says, "Oh, well, tempo doesn't work anymore." No one's done that. So what I am concerned about is, are you going to evolve, and how do you evolve this offense? We all know everybody has to evolve. Urban Meyer had to evolve. Rich Rod and all the
Oh
read
yeah, I mean,
option guys.
all of these were the next
Yes,
thing. I mean,
they all
Urban
have to
Myers,
evolve.
that's zone read spread stuff.
The
was
read,
just,
the
oh
read
my
option
gosh.
guys and the zone
And
read
they figured
guys,
it out.
they all had to evolve. The ones that did evolve stayed in the game. The Butch Jones of the world, the Rich Rods of the world, and the Kevin Summels of the world had to take a step back or are out of the game altogether.
Whereas
right?
Nick Saban was a guy who was like, we're never going to this tempo stuff. It's bad for the game. Oh, everybody's winning with it. Let's go to the tempo stuff.
go to the tempo.
Steve Spurrier, I famously
And
know,
I
went to the
will,
zone read.
even though I think that long term this could be problematic for Josh Heupel, I got to give him credit.
Yes.
He did last year realize my strength is on the defensive side of the ball, and so I am not going to do things that I did in the past. Just one season before, 4th and 2 at his own 46 against Alabama, he was going. This year, you saw very little of that. So he did adapt in that way. And so the question is, can he continue adapting the other way?
He made the playoffs last year. I mean, we're talking
he
about
did.
we're talking about how much this is a concern, and that's where I would go with this. I think it's a positive that yes, it seems that he may be reading what the defenses are doing in terms of overall and tweaking his offense to keep you more off kilter, not knowing whether or not we're going to be tempo here or not. I don't think it's complete crap, but you think that's fine.
Yes.
But however, I'm probably still more concerned that it's really you hired him to do this thing.
Yes.
Now he's not going to be able to do that thing that we saw that you wanted. But he made the playoffs not doing that thing. And the year before, he went 9-4 without doing that thing. He won, 19 games in 2 years? All right, I know that's not a national championship, but for Tennessee fans, that should be plenty well good enough of the last 20 years to then build on it. I don't know where he can build from here, though. I was counting on that offense being the thing he built with, not building with his defense.
But we've seen guys who have evolved this, right? We've seen Jeff Lebby at Ole Miss evolve this and add some levels, concepts, and things like that to it. We saw Seth Littrell evolve this, and that's what Heupel's going to have to do. He's going to have to evolve to what they're doing to keep him from having the splash plays. In my opinion, he's going to have to either keep them to evolve or just beat them death with 1,000 cuts until they get out of it, and then you have a chance to beat them over the top.
The thing that's tough with that, though, they are so, even when they weren't as much tempo last year, they were still penalty heavy.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
So it's hard to be a team that we're going to march it down on an 8-play drive if you're constantly having to overcome 5, 10, 15.
Every drive.
I mean,
Bingo.
first and 15, second and 15,
Hard to
that
overcome.
stuff that you get.
That's right.
And they tended to get it a lot. That's kind of the.
And now you've got 4 new offensive
And
linemen.
now you got 4 new offensive linemen. So it worries me long term.
Do we not look at this also and say, okay, if you were going to less tempo the last 2 years and it was strategic, why were you worse offensively? And you were. I agree with what Bob said. I think that they did it last year because he realized the strength of his team, as I have, just ridiculous embarrassment of riches of depth on the defensive side of the football.
And also his weakness was his offensive line.
It was. Yeah.
Because he had a rookie quarterback back there.
Yep.
Starting for the first year. He wasn't a complete rookie, but starting for the first time for a season. And you saw what he looked like at Oklahoma. He was getting hit every play. He was looking a little shaky.
Your right tackle was a turnstile. Your left tackle wasn't ready.
So I
You
thought it
didn't
was
have a
smart
receiver
last
that
year.
you could go, okay, that's our go-to guy. He's going to do exactly what we want him to do. So I'm not saying that Heupel doesn't adapt. I think he can adapt. But if you're talking about,
But I don't want him to
this coach
adapt.
long term,
I don't want him to have to adapt.
Yes.
Yes.
I
but
don't
he's
want
gonna get, but everybody has
exactly,
to, right?
exactly. It was just, it's a shame that he ran it for 2 years and then you already have to start
And then
adapting.
suddenly everybody starts running.
Well, see, that's just it. We talked about it. The more people they brought into the SEC doing this, the less of a special offense it is, because it's not like your Army anymore and you're the only guys that run this, and suddenly a team's got to say, oh, God, we got to prepare for this week.
Yeah.
Instead, it's, oh, well, we saw this with
once it-
Mississippi
once
State
it-
2 weeks ago, and Ole Miss runs a portion of this 3 weeks ago. We got this. That makes it easier to
again,
defend.
There was a time when
Virginia
the Wishbone
Tech's
won
running
you a
this.
national championship. And then the next thing you know, everybody's running it.
And that's
they
another-
got it figured.
And that's another coach who's on the Mount Rushmore, and Bear Bryant, who
Yes.
then said, well, we'll change and we'll win this other way. I mean, this is a guy who won championships doing this and championships doing that.
And the other guys who don't, like you saw Bush
Yeah.
Jones, the system is infallible. And I'm calling high school football, watching Carnes High School be able to stop the
forgotten
read
that.
option, and I'm like, buddy, you're going to have to adjust. No, I don't have to adjust. Oh, well, you're fired. You know what I mean? Like that's what happens when you don't adjust to those things. So, yes, he's going to have to evolve, but you look at it, the greats evolve. You mentioned it, Nick Saban, Urban Meyer.
Spurrier going zone read at
yes.
South
How
Carolina
much
and
do
making Atlanta.
They evolve because defenses are always going to catch up. I did an interview with Joe Moorhead one time, and I asked him, hey, all the read options or all the read option stuff that you're doing, what defenses are saying they're catching up with it. He said, no. I'll always have a new wrinkle for him. Well, he's out of a job as well. So it's one of those things that you have to know you're going to evolve. And I hope, and it would terrify me that Josh Heupel didn't evolve as much last year, but I would think that has to do with more so the type of talent he had on the defensive side of the football.
And I think it may be tough this year. I think it may be tough this year because you're bringing in a quarterback that didn't go through spring practice, and you're throwing in 4 new starters on the offensive line. You don't have Dylan Sampson. You got 3 new wide receivers at the top of your list. That's going to be tough. People don't want to hear it, and they keep saying they'll be fine. Okay, there are years when they aren't fine. You know when they told me they would be fine? The year when they lost to Georgia State and BYU to open the season. And suddenly it wasn't fine. So I do think that the positive, and I just want to be clear on this, you do want to see him adapt. You don't want to see him have to adapt. That's what I hate to see the fact that you're already having to adapt something that works so well, and you're sitting there going, we've got that. Finally, all these other teams have had years where they had the formula. We watched Urban Meyer in Florida with that formula. Now we've got a guy who's got the formula, and already you're having to change the formula. So you want to see him adapt. I hate that he's having to. At the same time, last year wasn't really, as you said, a successful adaptation on offense. You adapted and won with defense, kudos, outstanding. I think that shows a plus. Most offensive coaches can't do that. Yep. Most defensive coaches are always going to lean on defense. They're always going to get conservative. He showed he doesn't have to be going 100 miles an hour. I can win with defense. I can play to the defense, which we called for 2 years ago, and now he's done it. But we haven't seen the offense be tweaked, as you said, and be successful. It's not like I can't punch anymore. I'm going to counterpunch. His counterpunch wasn't as good last year on offense. And I think that's where you're going to have to prove it. The offense, if your deal is we can't run as much tempo, we've got to keep you off balance, we've got to throw different things at you, then at some point that's going to have to work. And I don't know if this is the year it's going to work.
I would agree with you.
He runs the wishbone. I've now mentioned it 3 times.
Yeah,
But that's why he brought Seth Littrell in, right? Like
good sign.
Theoretically, what Seth Littrell did looked really good. The problem is you had all new offensive linemen, and a lot of them were backups at the mid-major level.
Yeah.
You brought in to be starters in your first year in the SEC, and you had 5 wide receivers injured. My concern for Tennessee is you're bringing in Seth Littrell with an all-new offensive line, and you only have, 6, 7 scholarship or total receivers on your roster right now.
And if you get past 4, we're going to have some serious questions about who the bottom of that list is.
Yes.
Yeah, so that is the one thing I'm concerned about. You have the pieces in place to make that evolution. Will you do it? Because last year they were very rigid in what they did offensively.
All right. We need to do another one of these where we just come back and it's Will West talks about the total crap of Philip Montgomery.
Just dump on this.
That's good, though. But anyway, we finally got the segment in that I was hoping to get in, because the big picture is I do think it's positive that he's shown a willingness to adapt, but we got to see the offense work with his adaptation and not just be we're winning with defense.
Yes.
So that's what we need to see. Will West, Bob Hodge, thank these guys. Thank you for watching. Thanks to Hearthside Bank for bringing you the Sports Source Digital Network. Be sure to like. Be sure to comment. You may agree, disagree with what we're saying. Be sure to click subscribe. You'll know when we post stuff here on the Sports Source Digital Network. We'll see you next time.